We are recording with Mr. Mike Wright on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 12:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you again for your patience for me being 30 minutes late. Um, you and I we've talked briefly off air before, kind of about the Blue Room, and but because you are the expert, at least relative to me, if not the objective expert in this, could you please kind of talk about the importance of this, how it works, and I guess before anything else, introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Mike Wright. I'm the operations manager for BluRoom Enterprises. The BluRoom was invented by my beloved boss, Jay-Z Knight. She has all her life loved God, prayed to God, uh, prayed for insights to help her. She had a passion for wanting to heal people, even though she never went into the medical world. And this technology came about as a revelation to her in late 2014, early 2015. She shared that with her chiropractor at the time, her physician, and he said, "Wow, that sounds cool. I've got an empty treatment room. Why don't you build it in there and we'll try it out because I can put my patients into the Blue Room first and then bring them to my table for their adjustments, and my hands will tell me, if there's a difference." So she built it a test model, and he did that. And after 2 weeks, he came back and said, "You got something here. My patients are more relaxed. Their bodies take the adjustments far easier. The adjustments hold longer between sessions." He said, "I don't know how it works, but you've got a miracle here, and this is fantastic." So she applied for a patent. She called me and said, "Start a small company, do the trademarks." I worked for her in another business as well, and keep it lean. And let's, start sharing this information with the broader world. That was in 2015. So we're 9 years into this. There's 45 commercial public Blue Rooms around the world in 15 countries. Most of them are in the wellness community, some are in medical practices, and then there's several private ones for employee programs, or a couple of people just have one in their own home. And we've had 500,000 people go through these over the years. And I've been doing the literature research to support the technology. There's basic linear technology involved. There's also more advanced technology. We refer to it like Tesla technology and his 369 ratios, and how electromagnetic spectrum components, as well as acoustics, geometry, the mirrors like you can see there, all of that creates an atmosphere around the couch. And it's the atmosphere around the couch that induces the state of the person who's using it, and creates the change. First mentally, with a mental reset, and that then cascades down through the body physiologically. There are some also physiological effects from the Blue Room environment. So that's the quick overview. She did get her patent, both here in the US and in countries around the world. And it's been a very successful rollout. We were thrilled to get as much interest as we have. And I've got a little bit of the research to share with you over the course of this hour.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. I gave you permission to share.
Okay, let me start with our little just intro. Here, I learned how to share my screen, so let me do that.
All right.
Number two here, share the picture of me showing the picture of you. And share that and start.
There you
Yes.
go.
And now we need to start the PowerPoint slides. Yes, there we go. All right, so this is a picture of one of the Blue Rooms. This is the one here in our facility. And you can see it's an octagon, 8 walls. And as you enter into it, we'll do a little video interior tour up next. It's about 12 feet across on the side dimensions, and about 8.5 feet tall, so it's roomy. You don't have to get undressed. You don't have to take a shower before or afterwards, like some other wellness treatment programs. It's real simple. Slip your shoes off, go in, lay down, put some protection over your eyes because it does include narrowband UVB, which is a medical component, although we don't use it in its medical capacity. We use it to induce the atmosphere around the couch, as I said. So let's do a little video tour here next. Got some music for this one, so just sit back and relax. It's only about a minute and so. There we go. We talk about the healing journey, which begins with a change of perspective. And that change of perspective leads the body to its physical renewed state because the mind influences the body. So the BluRoom is an adjunct to medical treatments. You can use it with other medical treatments. And it helps patients in despair be uplifted, pain relief, those who are depressed and stressed, transformed into a tranquil, peaceful state, a mental state of detachment. We describe it as stasis. In the last 100 years, medicine has become so focused on the body, they've forgotten about mind and spirit. The BluRoom technology supports all three. It's more of an idealistic calling to healing in that regard rather than linear everyday medicine. I mentioned Tesla in my opening remarks and his famous quote, "If you knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have a key to the universe." And this particular reference, we use the geometry of the 3, 6, and 9, and we use the mechanisms of 3, 6, and 9 for applying the UVB in the timing of the sessions. And that affects the environment around the couch. It creates an atmosphere. And that atmosphere is related to the mathematics that today is described as toroidal mathematics or torsion physics that involves accessing what Tesla in his time called the ether or the aether, A-E-H-E-R. Ether physics is making a resurgence now. There's been a huge amount of research in the last dozen years or so. And even though it goes against the grain of people who say, well, second law of thermodynamics, you can't. And the answer is, well, the second law of thermodynamics only has to do with a closed system, and the universe is an open system. So we can draw on the ether, we can draw on what is now called zero-point energy, and that is a non-linear application of electromagnetic fields as well as acoustic fields, and the BluRoom has components of each. So the number 9 has a bit of a paradox to it, duality. In the mathematics of torsion physics, it represents the singularity. It's the endpoint of our linear sequence. And it also represents the vacuum. And I'm just tossing these drawings out as clues to what people can research on their own about torsion physics or toroidal physics, toroidal mathematics. It is a multi-dimensional approach to reality rather than a linear flatlander or a 3D perspective that classical mechanical physics has kind of gotten stuck in the last 100 years. But non-Newtonian physics, non-Newtonian materials, and non-Newtonian environments are being created. And it is an advanced technology that isn't broadly available, but if you look for the literature and you look for it, you can find it. And we incorporate some of that into the BluRoom technology. So the atmosphere around the couch is what we're creating. And this is just a little demo here from our graphics artists to create a little butterfly environment. The mental change that awakens in us the mental to emotional to then physical transformation of the healing journey. All right, coming back to you after that little intro there. Once I learn how to unshare my screen, I know it's there somewhere. There it is. Stop sharing. Okay.
Well, then, can you further explain the what you said in the email, the importance of the I guess Tesla's research in the 369?
Well, so first, I would say that we incorporate the simple 3, 6, and 9 ratio in how a person uses their BluRoom sessions. The sessions are 20 minutes in length, but we add in the UVB component from the medical lamps for 3 minutes, and then progressively to 6 minutes, and then progressively to 9 minutes. So it allows the individual a chance to adapt to what would otherwise be a foreign environment. It's like learning to swim underwater. How long can you hold your breath? First, it's 30 seconds, then you build up to 45, then a minute. People don't jump in and hold their breath for 9 minutes. It takes adaptation to move into a novel environment. The BluRoom is creating a novel environment that is rarefied, so it's not dense like water or the everyday environment that we find ourselves in, driving and walking and breathing. It creates a more rarefied environment through the geometry and through the electromagnetic components and through the acoustic components that access what Tesla called the ether physics, or the ether environment, that we can then draw on, and that creates the mental stasis because of the novel environment and the environmental effects of both the lamps and the acoustics. Those things create a release of nitric oxide in the skin stores that induces a relaxation effect in the vascular system that allows people to physiologically relax. It induces an endorphin experience in the brain, and that chemistry gives you that slightly detached feeling for 24 to 48 hours, so that you have a sense of detachment from whatever difficulties you're dealing with in your healing journey. So there's a less perception of pain, and there's a greater sense of calm in the face of what could be, horrific adversities or even small adversities that wear away at us. And that renewed sense of hope because you've slept well for a couple of nights and you haven't had to take as much pain meds, or you haven't had to take as much of whatever medication you're on, and you go back to the doc and the doc says, hey, gee, your numbers have changed. We need to reduce your medication. I don't know what you're doing, but it's working. So that's the practical application of the Tesla technology. It's in the results that people feel and they can experience and carry with them. And then they can either choose to continue and adjust, or they can choose as like, well, that was great. But they prefer the other interventions that are available. So in a complementary application of the BluRoom technology, it gives people a personal experience and they're in control because they get to choose how often and how frequently and how long. So that sense of control builds that personal hope. And I want to show you next, if you're ready to move on,
Yeah,
some of our most recent research that provides evidence of the benefits of being in the BluRoom environment that we have created through these geometries, through these electromagnetic applications, and through the acoustic applications. Because sometimes the theory can get a little bit abstract, and people didn't live with this in their graduate or undergraduate or high school training, and so it sounds foreign to them. So we go to, well, let's do some show and tell and show you some evidence, show you some results, and then you get to decide for yourself, because we're not saying this is the one savior technology for everybody on planet Earth. It works, and it works for those who prefer this approach to their healing journey than other approaches. So it's one of many.
go for it.
Okay, so one of our research physicians that we've had over the last many years is Dr. Anna Mihalcha. She's a clinical physician in medical practice. She's also got a PhD in biotechnology. And I'm going to get that slide up. She's, in the last couple of years, she's been using dark field live blood analysis. Where's my share screen button here? There it is. All right, once again, we're going to share screen number 2. And then jump over here and start the slide set. You're sharing your screen. Yes, we are. So live blood analysis before and after BluRoom sessions. And this was a single volunteer, one of Dr. Anna's patients. And over the course of 4 days, she did blood samples and looked at them under the microscope. So the first day, our volunteer did his live blood analysis as a baseline for what was going on in his blood. Then he came down the street to us and our Shiva complex that I showed you a bit ago. That's our BluRoom facility, and had a BluRoom session. And then he went right back over to the clinic and got a follow-up blood analysis. Then he went to Anna's clinic on day 2, about 24 hours later, day 3, about 48 hours later, and finally day 4, 72 hours after his last BluRoom, he got a baseline for day 4, came and had another BluRoom session, and then went right back and got a follow-up blood analysis. So that was the profile that we went through just to see what we could see. So the volunteer, who was also a patient of Dr. Anna's, had been doing regular monthly IV chelation therapy with EDTA, and so, which is very effective at cleaning the blood from a number of issues.
Heavy metals.
Okay, heavy metals in particular, metals of all kinds. And so his last chelation had been 4 weeks prior to the start of the study. So he did one at the beginning of July, and he was going to be doing one follow-up at the beginning of August. So we stuck this study period in at the end of July. So he was not doing anything out of the ordinary in his daily activities, but it was coming up for getting one of his chelation sessions. So we expected to see some stuff in his blood, which is why he's doing chelation once a month. And that was useful for us because we could anticipate seeing something, and then we could see what the BluRoom was doing with respect to the somethings. And then also he's taking a number of nutrient supplements for regular detoxification, vitamin C, and so on and so on. Anna's protocol and several other physicians' protocols, and he stopped doing that the week prior as well. He did a standard BluRoom session, and he had worked his way up through the Tesla 369 to adapt to being in the UVB portion for the full 9 minutes. So he was a really good candidate in many regards. Okay, just Anna's conclusions, and I've tightened this up from the full report. The BluRoom appears to increase red blood cell vitality and decrease the oxidative stress short term. So the BluRoom helps the red blood cells do what they're supposed to do and reduces the stress on the blood cells, which shows up sometimes in the shape of the cell itself. I'm not a live blood analysis expert by any means, so I'm trying to bridge that to somebody who might not have any experience with it. As Dr. Anna said, live blood analysis is challenging to quantify in terms of other measurements where you can just get down to a number. So it's more a qualitative view of the environment you're looking at and how you see changes in the environment of the blood over time. So even though it's difficult to quantify, it appeared over the course of the 4 days, the BluRoom could be effective as an adjunct or a support to the body to cope with the presence of nanotechnology, bioweapons, environmental toxins, all of the stuff that we're exposed to, chemtrails, you name it, and that the BluRoom seemed to help this individual, and his body responded to it in a way that coped with the presence of all of this stuff. And then her third bullet was, but the BluRoom doesn't help with getting that stuff out of the blood. It just makes the blood cells more resilient and better able to thrive in the environment. So she, of course, recommends other approaches to getting rid of whatever is in your blood, but that the BluRoom helps with the individual on many levels other than actually removing whatever the toxins may be. And finally, her point, the BluRoom has other beneficial effects that you're not going to see in live blood analysis, the emotional and spiritual support that should benefit any individual. And that comes back to reduce pain and improve sleep and that detached state of hope that you can deal with whatever adversity you're dealing with as you're going through that healing journey. Okay, here's a shot of the day one, the baseline of the blood before the first BluRoom session. You can see that these are all red blood cells. Let me just do a little introduction here. All of these little circles that are clumped together like stacks of Oreo cookies are red blood cells that are in an unhealthy state. That's called rouleau. Means they look like a stack of coins or a stack of chips. And that means that they're challenged in transporting oxygen effectively throughout the body because they're all clumped together. So this is a state where somebody would be stressed because they're just not getting good oxygen delivery throughout the body. And we'll just play this video for a little bit. And just looking around and seeing quite a bit of clumping in the red blood cells that is an effect of the environmental exposures and the lack of nutritional or IV support. Okay, I'll pause there. So that's the first day. That was on a Monday before, and then we come over here. He gets his BluRoom session. He goes right back. And here we are, day one after the BluRoom session.
Jeez.
This is at a slightly higher scale, or actually lower scale. So we've pulled back a little bit so you can see a broader spectrum, and there's far less of the rouleau formation, far less of the stacking and clumping. And so the cells are better able to transport oxygen throughout the body because of that change. And we'll just play this video a little bit. You can also see that there's a lot more motion, not only in the microscope by Dr. Anna, but the blood is moving a little bit better than it was in the first imagery where it was hardly moving at all. Okay, now we jump forward. Oops, here we are at day 4 here. I'm sorry. Day 4, so it's been 72 hours since his last BluRoom. The effects of the BluRoom have lingered, and now we're looking at the blood before he comes to the BluRoom the final day. Oops, there we go. So zoomed in a little bit, still less clumping than on the baseline of day 1. A little bit of clumping, but it's not the whole stack, kind of chips or stacked coins effect. So the blood transport is healthier, the environment is better for the individual, and he's feeling good as well. And then the final slide set, or excuse me, the final video, this is after his second BluRoom of the week, and Dr. Anna has zoomed way out to get the big field here of his blood flow after his second BluRoom session. And oops, back up. Come on, Mike, you can do this. Show the video. Good motion, good flow of the cells, very little rouleau clumping. So that means lots of oxygen being transported. Okay. So I just grabbed a screenshot so that everybody can take a look. In the upper left, day 1, that's heavy rouleau, heavy clumping of the blood cells and affecting oxygen delivery as well as other nutrients, of course. And then over to the right at the upper screenshot there is after the first BluRoom session on day 1, less clumping, broadly looking now. And then down in the lower left, we see day 4, 3 days later, after his first BluRoom and before his second BluRoom, still less clumping than on the baseline. And then finally, after the BluRoom session on day 4, so the second one for the week, and even far less of the clumping phenomenon. So much better flow, The cells are more resilient. They're resistant to any what I call cooties in the environment, microorganisms, microtechnology, depending on your point of view, that the cells are less stressed. And that is the end of that slide set. So let me get back to unsharing my screen and back to you. There we are. Okay, thoughts and questions?
Keep going. I enjoy this.
Okay. All right, so I want to back up in time a little bit to one of our first studies, and this was done in, I think late 2016. We started this study, and it involved veterans with PTSD. Jay-Z's whole family, her brothers, her father, had all been in the wars. She understood the effect of conflict on people. She understood PTSD, and she understood that regular, what do they call it? Veterans Administration medication wasn't really a solution to provide a healing. It was just a chemical constraint, a chemical barrier against the issues that PTSD sufferers have. So she asked a local psychiatric nurse practitioner if she would be willing to survey her vets with PTSD to get some volunteers. And we got 11 volunteers who were under care with this particular nurse practitioner for psychiatric care and to support their claims for the VA and the meds that they get to support their condition. And let me go back to sharing my screen again. No videos on this one. Share the screen. Number 2, yes, number 2, share. And show the slides. Okay, so here's the quick summary. This was a preliminary trial, so we had 11 volunteers and family members of vets as well that had been diagnosed with PTSD or some form of trauma disorder that were under the care of a nurse practitioner in psychiatric practice up the street from us in Olympia. And out of the 11 that started over the course of the months of treatment sessions, 2 vets no longer had PTSD per her diagnosis, and they got weaned off their medication. 6 had excellent improvements in their symptoms. 2 had mild improvements, and 1 had to drop out early because of a schedule conflict. So the nurse practitioner, she was totally thrilled. The vets were totally impressed, at least 8 of the 10. The 2 with mild improvements, like, yeah, that was pretty cool. And, it wasn't all touchy-feely. I kind of like the UFO look, the high tech. That's for me. Don't give me any touchy-feely stuff. I don't want to do yoga, okay? It's like, check this out. Oh my goodness.
Give me
Okay,
the Area 51. Yeah,
we're talking Star Wars stuff here. Let's go in there, and I don't
give me
have
the
to
Bob Lazar tech.
Okay, so moving to the next, one of the case examples was this fellow Dale, who was a Vietnam vet, and by his own medical history, had years of nightmares, had been on PTSD and disability and meds. He wasn't able to actually get a VA claim at the time, and so he was having to pay for his care out of pocket. He started using the BluRoom when this program started up in late 2016. And after his first couple of sessions, he says, "It feels like I'm going to a place of peace. You don't feel judgment toward yourself. You feel healthy and happy." So he was getting to that neutral place, that sense of detachment. And he stuck with it after the study and became a regular visitor for 2 sessions a week, and gave us an update, was on the local news channel. It gave me the power to start a claim with the VA, which was approved, not for meds, but for the historical disability and back pay. And he said, "I feel like a phoenix rising, like I'm coming up out of the ashes."
Hell yeah,
And
Dale.
several video interviews with Dale over that 1.5 year period at shivablue.com/PTSD. So you can check out his story. And for the first time, he was able to wear his gear, wear his VA hat, speak openly about being a vet, and begin to reach out to others who were still caught up in avoidance. And if you remember that time, they were not treated as heroes when they came back.
Hmm.
It was terrible. Here was another one of the participants. Cynthia was a pilot in Afghanistan in the Air Force, and returned home after the war and was hit by a pickup truck and suffered a traumatic brain injury. So she was in care of the nurse practitioner in part of her recovery. And about this, she said, the BluRoom was peaceful and therapeutic. My short-term memory is coming back thanks to the BluRoom sessions. And videos of Cynthia's sessions can be also viewed at shivablue.com/PTSD. And then just one more fellow. I'm finding the BluRoom quieting. I'm less reactive to sudden noises, less susceptible to flash anger. As for happy, recently some moments have come out of the blue without being prompted by a favorable event or relationship. It's one thing to be happy in a happy situation. That's easy. But another to be happy for no reason and curious. So this is a fellow who was having a sense of happiness without some external stimulus that would respond. It was coming from within him. And this was his very dry, I don't really want to be on camera summation of experience in the 6-month trial of his BluRoom experience. And he's curious. He stayed curious too and did it for a little while longer. All right, I'm going to come out of sharing my screen here and close that. Whoops, what did I do there? There, we're back. Okay, how you doing?
Good. Other than the COVID, I'm doing good.
Oh,
Your personal experiences with it. Could you touch on that?
sure. Um, when I first went in, my very first experience was, oh, yes, this feels so familiar. And then I was, whoop. And then there was a knock on the door and a voice that said, your session's over. Take your time coming out. And I said, that wasn't 20 minutes. You're like, oh, yeah, it was 20 minutes. I said, no, what happened? and and I did, because I work here, I had access to every day. I did a BluRoom session every day for the first 3 years because I wanted to experiment on myself and my body. And I worked my way up to 9 minutes. And one of our research physicians was working with very sick people who were pushing, should we do more for them, more UV? And what they discovered was more isn't better all at once, because that puts stress on, environmental stress on the body, like being underwater for too long in one session, but that more frequently was beneficial. And instead of twice a week, they did 3 times a week or even daily for a couple of weeks. That gave them that regular mental shift that became a new neural net for them, a
Hmm.
new personality and a new way of viewing reality. And for me, I eliminated the low back pain that I had had for going on 20 years, having been out of the military from flying F-16s and pulling high Gs and all that Top Gun stuff. And I had chronic low back pain from that and was getting chiropractic once or twice a week for many years. And slowly I transitioned to every other week with the chiro. And after the BluRoom, I get an occasional tune-up. So it's been a real benefit mentally for me. I'm not nearly as personality-wise reactive to everyday stresses. And physiologically, I had that benefit as well. The other thing that I did was I was doing my own blood testing from just the regular blood draws. And I saw that my vitamin D levels went from negative numbers, because Washington State is always cloudy and rainy, except for a few weeks in the summer. And it went up, way up in my blood levels from doing regular BluRoom sessions, which caused a whole cascade of other physiological benefits, because vitamin D isn't just a vitamin. It's a hormone, a pre-hormone, and has a lot of effects throughout the body. So I find I need less sleep at night because the sleep that I get is really restful. And more recently, I've been using it a couple of times a week just to decudify, I call it, shake off whatever is in the environment from all of the toxins and the environmental poisons and all of the things that are going on. And while I worked my way up to 9 minutes using the Tesla protocol in the beginning, I tested out 12 minutes, like, that's too much. I don't need that. And now I'm actually back down to 6 minutes as a happy medium for my BluRoom sessions. So it is very individualized, and users get to work with, once they've been through the basic protocol, they work with the staff to hone what works best for them and their journey, because everybody's journey is different.
Kind of unrelated. Flying F-16s. Do you ever wish you could fly like an F-22 and an F-35 or something?
Not in the least.
Really? Re
Been there, done that.
really? Have
Yeah.
you
When
flown
I
them?
left, when I left the military, I had 10 years of flying in fighters. I flew F-16s and A-10s,
Oh,
and
really?
I got to be over in Europe for 3 years. I got to see the Berlin Wall come down. I got home. I got to see the Soviet Union collapse. I was a Cold Warrior. I never fought. There was never a hot war while I
Yeah.
was. But when I walked away from it, I was really done with that experience. And
Hmm.
I taught K through 6. I taught elementary school for a little bit for a while. And when the kids found out I had a flying experience, they tackled me and said, "You have to take us flying. We want a flying field trip." So we went to the local airport. I rented a Cessna 186, took the kids up with a chaperone, and turns out that one of the chaperone parents was also had her private pilot's license. She didn't tell me that. Otherwise, I would have warned her ahead of time that I don't fly light airplanes like your typical civilian pilot. And the kids loved it because they didn't know any different. It was the world's best roller coaster ride. And we got back on the ground, and he kissed the tarmac and he said, "I thought the wings were gonna, I thought we were dead. I couldn't believe it." I said, "Well, I knew the rated limits, I knew
Yeah.
the engineering limits, and I knew the insurance limits. So I knew I could fly this aircraft, 19% over its published limits and be perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Uh, because I had the background for that. So I could fly a 1.8, a Cessna like an F-16. And the kids were great. They didn't know. It's like, oh, this is fantastic. But
That's
that was it.
sick.
After that, I hung up my pilot's license and passed on an experience to the next generation. That's my contribution.
Sure.
Now I
Yeah.
prefer to fly up here.
Sure. No, sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just those things, they gotta be like the sports cars in the sky, right? Just
Oh
whipping
yeah.
around in an
I mean,
F-16.
why would I, go from racing cars at Indy to driving a bus?
Exactly. Yeah. That's gotta kind of like ruin flying for you. I mean, right? I mean, getting in like I get in a 737. It's so much better than driving in terms of just like actually feeling it. But I feel like flying an F-16 or something, or even an A-10, that's kind of gotta. I feel like everything else gotta pale in comparison.
Yeah, there are flying programs for people that want to try that out, like the Confederate Air Force. And if you want to get an orientation and go for a ride in a fast jet and yank and bank and do aerobatics, um, drink 7 Up, eat bananas because they're the same coming up as going down. So
God.
for your first flight, just a tip there. I got one more brief slide set I
Yeah, yeah,
want to
yeah. No, go for it. Yeah, no, sorry.
tell. Got to get back to get to that.
No, yeah, no, go for it.
We're so delighted, and Jay-Z in particular has just been so happy that it's been well received in the community at large,
Hmm.
that there is third-party research, lots of journal articles published on the benefits of blue light, even though there's some side effects to blue light that people worry about, but that's when you do blue light at nighttime on your screen instead of blue light in the daytime, which is when you're supposed to get blue light.
Hmm.
Um, and and just to see the relief that people have, and that they have an option, and that they have hope, I've just seen her melt at some of the stories we get. So, and I know she's listening, so I'm not saying that because she's my boss, it's because it's true.
Sure.
So the last little slide I want to show you here is a brief study we did again with Dr. Anna. This was back in 2019 on people with congestive heart failure. So serious disease condition, a lifetime of body problems, and very shortened, reduced quality of life. And she was treating them in a number of ways as their primary care physician in her geriatric practice at the time. So let me share my screen again. Share number 2. Sharing. Okay, congestive heart failure. The different category headers here before I get to the next slide. Diagnosis, conventional treatment, what they were undergoing, because the BluRoom is, the technical term is adjunct, complementary to all other conventional treatments. So you don't, it's not an either or, it's an and also. And then the outcomes of their cardiac echograms 3 to 8 months after starting BluRoom sessions. And then symptoms, and this is quality of life improvements, QOL. So a little bit of medical jargon here. Now that I've introduced that, let me go to the slide with the participants. And this is very busy, but just to highlight, under the diagnosis column, everybody had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. EF is the ejection fraction, what percentage of blood is actually being able to be pushed out by each heartbeat. And low numbers are very bad. You can see as low as 17 and 40% and 50%. Some of the other issues they've had, myocardial infarction is a heart attack, basically, stroke, defibrillators, cardiac arrests, more cardiac arrest, heart aneurysms. These are people with serious heart conditions, pacemaker. And then conventional treatment, blood pressure medications, other drugs, other drugs, other drugs, anti this, anti that. And that's about the best they can offer. And then after 3 to 8 months, getting another echocardiogram and seeing that the improvement from 17% to 20 to 25%, third line 21% to 56%, and on down the line, that they saw improvement in heart function. And then quality of life improvements in the last category, a variety of improvements, no symptoms, no stress, and better quality of life in general. I like this one down here. Excellent. BP meds of 20 years been decreased from 200 milligrams of blood pressure med down to 12.5. Hey, doc, I think I'm taking too much medication. Oh my God, you're right. We need to reduce your prescription. Complications were better, no symptoms. Quality of life, amazing. That's the kind of reports we like to see. Because even with all of the conventional physical things, quality of life is important. How you feel about your life, how you think about your life, how you perceive your life. That comes first, that you have that kind of hope, that you have a chance for change and healing. And all the meds in the world, not necessarily going to help with that, but they do protect the body from old attitudes and old issues until those can be resolved. And then her conclusions: combination therapy improved quality of life and mood. They didn't stop their regular treatments. They just added BluRoom to what they were doing. Symptoms improved, less fatigue, less shortness of breath. Ejection fraction improved and normalized. 6 of the 8 had a 75% response rate. It improved their ability of the heart to pump blood. Improvement of quality of life, 9 out of 9, 100% improvements. So these are the qualitative as well as the quantitative data that give other people hope that whatever challenge they're facing, the BluRoom may help them with their journey. And they don't have to change anything else. They don't have to do anything else special. They can wean off of other treatments as their symptoms abate. I'm going to pause this and unshare my screen so I remember how to do that.
Sorry, air conditioner
Oh, you're
kicked on. No, I
back.
just walked. Air conditioner kicked on. I had to turn it off.
Yeah, okay. So just give a quick bullet point summary of the benefits that have been reported. Deep relaxation, relief from mental stress and anxiety, pain relief. That's a big one. Physical pain relief, increased creativity, faster healing processes, and finally, then this one comes spontaneously from people, a sense of greater self-awareness,
Hmm.
that they perceive themselves as being more than they thought they were. And that's the dimensional component, the ethereal component of what is so often left out of linear medicine, the spiritual, mental, soulful, however you choose to incorporate that or define that, it doesn't matter. I love Jay-Z. She says, God is not insecure. God doesn't care what you call it. God doesn't care, how you feel about God. This is like, God is the giver. God is a creator. Life is the gift that we all have, and we have the opportunity to create and to contribute to life.
God doesn't care how you cite the sources.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not middle school. It's not MLA format. It's yeah. God doesn't care. You can rediscover it on your own at any time. Excuse me.
Sure.
Yeah, I think perhaps the most interesting one is veterans with PTSD because, I mean, I think what the war on terror, something like 7,500 servicemen and women were killed, and I think I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I believe the number from suicide from 2001 till now is something like 10 times the total death count of the
Oh,
actual
absolutely.
war.
The
So I mean, that's
PTSD,
a
depression, the suicide rates were astronomical.
I mean, but I mean to actually put that in perspective for people listening, 7,500 deaths in a 20-year war. Over 10 times that have been lost from suicide. So more deaths. And so Vietnam was, I think, 58,000 KIA. And we're looking at what? So roughly 75,000 from the war on terror from suicide. So we got the
Suicide
actual
alone.
number. Yeah. So we got the
Yeah.
number of deaths from combat down by, we'll call it roughly 90%, but the number of deaths from suicide after returning home, having not been blown up by an IED,
Yeah.
is 10 times. That's such a that's such an absurd number to even begin to. And I mean, I'm very open about it on the show. My brother wasn't in the military, but I lost a brother to suicide in 2014.
Mm.
I know how much. I mean, it's been 10 years. His birthday would have been 3 weeks. Still bothers me. It still punches me in the gut. It's been a decade, and this is one family, not even military, but a suicide nonetheless. It still it still stops me several times a year. It still can completely throw me for. I have COVID right now. I'd much rather have COVID than have bad days thinking about it because it still stops me in my tracks. And but then imagine that that is happening to 75,000, aside from the fact that going through it yourself is hell, but then the families that survive it, or for every family that was, I lost a brother, but a lot of times it's somebody's dad, it's somebody's breadwinner, it's a parent in a nuclear family,
Has a
and
horrible impact on
the
families and
repercussions
offsprings.
are beyond description. And that's just in families. I mean, then what effect does it have in society? And so to me, anything that ever touches on any sort of alleviation of pain from PTSD or anxiety or major depression disorder, and I do shows all the time about people that, veterans that go out and seek their own therapy. Some of I've had on guys that run like a ranch out in the Midwest somewhere where they essentially take guys out and they go fast for 3 or 4 days. Others have done self-administered psychedelics. I mean, there are so many things, and it's so depressing that these people who are in the worst states of mind also have to go and seek out therapy and often be creative about it at a time when their mind is simply struggling to survive. And so I have an admitted soft spot in my heart for anything that can help with mental health and suicide aversion. And it's just there's really no there should be no tolerance in our country for the number of suicides, specifically from military adults. It is just that number never gets brought up. It's
And it's
that
shocking that we can afford to pay for a war, but we can't afford to pay for our veterans when they come back. We can afford, but we don't.
we
The
don't.
system doesn't. And I've
Yeah.
dealt with the VA, and it's a beast. It's a labyrinth. And I know the individual people, they struggle with it in, trying to serve the veterans. So it's not the individual people that work at the VA, but
Yeah.
it's the system. It's
Yeah.
the backing, it's the laws, it's the rules, it's a machine that just grinds people down and wears away at their soul and their spirit, and they lose hope. And that's the downward spiral. And anything that can re-engender hope, even, one good night's sleep leads to another day of hope. And two good nights sleep with no pain or less pain. And now you've got 2 days of hope, and you're on the road to recovery, whatever journey that unfolds. But just to give people, and Dale is a really good example. He never wore any Vietnam regalia. He never mentioned his time in the war. He never said anything about PTSD or what he was dealing with. But I met him in a different context as a neighbor, and I looked at him and I knew immediately. And so when we came up with the PTSD trial, I just went to him and I said, Dale, buddy, come do this. And he's like, why? Why? And I said, because you got the 1,000-yard stare, and I know what that means. We don't
Yeah.
have to say anything more.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you know that. I said, I recognize it.
Yeah.
Come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
That's all it took, is just somebody just to say, it's not my journey, but I recognize it.
Mm. Yeah. And it's that is what's so frustrating is once you go and serve and then it's you kind of just recycled. You're thrown out. I mean, best case scenario, best case, you get a bottle of pills that numbs you. And that's best case, right? You get a bottle
Well,
of
there
Benzo.
are better cases, but
Yeah.
and,
No, I mean in terms of
and
the
that's
general
not, and that's
response
never
for
giving up on yourself. The
well, I
war
mean,
continues after the combat, and the war continues against the perpetrators. One of the things that woke me up, and one of the reasons I left the military so easily, was I found a little book written by Major General Smedley Butler.
the war is a racket.
War is a racket. And
Yeah,
it
I've
was a
read
quick
that.
read. And I went, holy moly. And I looked around, I said, I mean, this guy was a World War I and Philippines
Uh-huh.
war hero. And all that. I said, this guy's right. And I can see it now because, the blinders had come off. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to uphold my oath to protect and to support the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I got to separate from this military.
Hmm.
That was in 1990, before the run up to the Gulf War.
Yeah.
So I fortunately, I suppose, I I woke up, as it were, became aware. Red pill is like another term, if you like the Matrix. And I put in my papers to get out, and they're like, "Oh," I said, 10 years is good enough for me. I've done this. I'm ready for another journey." And 6 months later, reservists and guardsmen were being called up, and everybody was going off to fight the first Gulf War.
Mm.
I just shook my head and I said, "Oh, it was so close. I could have been a part of that." And I
Yeah.
didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. Nobody did.
Yeah.
But I saw something else and saw another opportunity, and took that turn in the fork in the road. And God, God blessed me that day that I found that book.
Mm. Yeah, no, War is a racket is it's kind of the OG one that will knock your breath away. And then, you read more about Eisenhower and then the rest is kind of history. But no, the Smedley Butler is the one that gets you because, you know, that guy, it's not some unexperienced dude, right? He's the most decorated, I think,
Yeah.
Marine in US history,
Yep.
right? And yeah, it went from yeah, like the China intervention and like the Boxer Wars and or not Boxer Wars, the China Wars
Yep.
all the way through. Yeah, no, you can read his there's another book about him. I think it's called Gangsters of Capitalism, and then there's The Plot to Steal the White House. Those are two
Yeah.
other books. Those are books
They're all
about him.
free on the internet now, so you
Yeah.
don't have to buy
Yeah.
it at Amazon.
Yeah. And you
The,
read
the
and you
copyright's worn off. They're that
yeah.
old,
Yeah, no, no,
but they're
and they're
timely.
well, that's actually a very important point is they're that old and they're still I mean, you read about them and sure the corporations and have changed, it's not that you might read them and kind of scoff. You're like, yeah, well, we're not going to war over bananas anymore. But then you immediately go, so why are we defending Ukraine? Oh, there's like $10 trillion of lithium there. Why is Taiwan so important to democracy?
I
What about
think
what?
we're
Oh,
getting away
there's
from our original topic here,
yeah.
but
No,
all
no,
these
but
are
my point
all
is
great topics to pursue because they do give you a different mental outlook and
well,
they do add to, personal health when you can say, God, I've been deceived. And now, I'm not going to be deceived anymore. And that's a part of the wake up that creates a healthy mindset and gets you back in the fight, gets you back in the journey because suddenly you have a new sense of self.
well, to tie them in, I think it is on topic because you can look at just how old the deception is,
Uh, True.
and it's it's not new to say, oh, you get recycled and spit out, and your mental health is not a priority. The
And
big, the interests of whoever
yeah,
is the
those same
priority.
interests were the ones that suppressed the Tesla work and the Tesla technology in
Exactly.
favor of Edison and Rockefeller.
So it's if
So it
you
all loops back together. It's the same. It is the
it's
same story.
it is the same story. Well, it's also the same story of you're kind of on your own to go seek help, and that's depressing, but it's where you are and you're not alone. And I think again to kind of tie it all back in is that's why I do have such a soft spot for this stuff is again my brother was in the military, but to me that makes no difference. I understand the pain just the same. And it's extrapolated to every household, every town, every friend group. There's someone correct. And I think that's the importance. So, um, yeah, no, yeah, Mike, you're officially a victim of my podcast. You have been a subject to, you've been subject to the off the rails that the conversation eventually goes to. It eventually,
Hey, I appreciate that I got to be on the, have the microphone for 45, 50 minutes. And you certainly, use kudos to you because you do give your guests the freedom to, without interrupting. And then, yes, I respect your views too, and appreciate your
yes, sir.
podcast because, you have a tie-in and a personal investment in it.
And to what you said about yeah, letting people, yeah, some people do ask about. They're like, you don't push back on people, or you don't. And to me, the real value isn't just letting people talk. Anyone can put that's every evening news show. It's just people bickering. I'd much rather just go like everyone's heard that this is episode 1543. They know who I am. They don't need to hear for the 1543rd time my life story. It's a guest and I want to hear you talk. So it is I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice when people don't attack me for letting people talk, but actually they're like, "Hey, I appreciate that."
I
So
do.
thank you. Thank you for that.
And I
Um,
know Jay-Z does as well, and she's looking forward to being a guest at some point.
I would love to
She
have her.
stops being busier than 50 lures as she is right now. It's a busy time of year for her,
Yeah,
but
no, I
we'll check
totally
back in
understand.
September.
Yes, yes, sir. I totally understand that. Um, but for now, if you want, Mr. Wright, we can wrap this up. I'd love to have you on again sometime, man. You're a cool dude.
Sure, be happy to.
Yeah, and I'd
Lots
be
of other topics we can peruse.
yeah, let's do it, man. I'd love to. There's another, the suicide thing. There's always a soft spot. There's another soft spot when anytime anyone ever brings up Smedley Butler, I'm like, my guy. I'm like, all right. I always perk up a little bit. I'm like, oh, he knows. Um,
If you know, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Thank you very much, Tommy.
yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, please go in the description. Please go like us Blue Room Therapy. The link is in there. And yeah, I'll send you an email. I'd love to have you on again sometime, man.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care.